Even as NASA counts down to the scheduled retirement of the space shuttle, final construction of the International Space Station continues to move forward. When Atlantis launches on NASA's 34th mission to the ISS, the 6-member crew of STS-132 will begin a 12-day mission to add some finishing touches to the Russian segment of the station and to fortify the outpost for the post-shuttle era. The flight will deliver the Russian-built mini research module MRM-1 to the station. The module is named Rassvet, the Russian word for dawn. During 3 scheduled spacewalks, the shuttle crew will install a backup space-to-ground data communications antenna and will remove and replace 6 batteries on the P6 truss. The crew will also attach a new tool platform to the Dexter robotic hand and perform other maintenance work. The STS-132 mission marks a poignant milestone for NASA as Atlantis prepares to spread its wings on its last scheduled flight. The STS-132 crew members are all flown astronauts, including one former space station resident. The commander of Atlantis is Navy Captain Ken Ham. During this flight, he will fly Atlantis to its docking and also assist in robotics work. He first flew in space as the pilot of STS-124. Navy Commander Tony Antonelli is the pilot of Atlantis. He will serve as the mission's quarterback or intervehicular officer, overseeing the 3 spacewalks, and will fly Atlantis as it undocks from the station. He first flew as the pilot of STS-119. Dr. Garrett Reisman is Mission Specialist 1. A former space station resident, he lived and worked on the ISS for 3 months during Expedition 16 and 17. He will conduct 2 spacewalks during STS-132. Mission Specialist 2 is retired Air Force Colonel Michael Good, launching on his 2nd mission aboard Atlantis. During his last flight, STS-125, he performed 2 spacewalks during the final Hubble Space Telescope upgrade mission. He will perform 2 spacewalks on this flight. Navy Captain Steve Bowen, Mission Specialist 3, is NASA's first submariner astronaut. He is making his 2nd voyage to the ISS after STS-126. He will make 2 spacewalks on this flight. Mission Specialist 4 is Dr. Piers Sellers. For this, his 3rd spaceflight, the veteran spacewalker will operate the station's robotic arm. STS-132 features a mix of ISS construction and upgrades for the station for its life after shuttle.
The #1 priority is to deliver the mini research module, #1, also known as MRM-1, Russian-built module. Takes up about almost a half of the payload bay. Weighs roughly 18,000 pounds, maybe 22, 23 feet long or so. And bring that up and attach it to space station.
STS-132 will also deliver some new equipment for station aboard an integrated cargo carrier, the ICC VLD-2. On Flight Day 3, immediately after docking, Sellers and ISS flight engineer Tracy Caldwell Dyson will grapple the ICC carrier with the station's robotic arm. They will temporarily stow the carrier on an attachment point on the station's mobile base system. One side of the ICC carrier contains a redundant Ku-band space-to-ground antenna, called the S-GANT for short, and its boom. This antenna is a backup for the primary S-GANT assembly currently used for high-rate data communications to and from the ISS. The redundant S-GANT and the enhanced tool platform for Dexter, the station's robotic hand, will be installed to the ISS during EVA-1. The other side of the ICC rack contains 6 new batteries for the ISS solar arrays on the P6 truss. The batteries' removal and replacement during EVAs 2 and 3 is similar to that accomplished during STS-127. The old batteries will return to Earth aboard the ICC pallet in the shuttle's payload bay. At launch, The Rassvet docking port module will contain U.S. cargo and a spare elbow joint for the European robotic arm that will be attached later to the Columbus lab module. Rassvet will also carry an airlock for the future Russian multi-purpose laboratory module.
We're going to attach MRM-1 to the nadir side, which is the Earth-facing side of Space Station, just aft. It's basically between the FGB and Node 1. So it's the very beginning of the Russian side of the space station.
On flight day 5, Ham and Antonelli will grapple Rassvet with the shuttle arm and hand it off to the station's big arm, operated by Reisman and Sellers, for its berthing to the Zarya module on station.
Again, that's Garrett that's running the arm for that operation because he has some real-world experience. And then our payload commander for the MRM-1 is Piers. He has Russian language experience, which is really helpful.
We'll use the laptop to talk to the Russian module. We'll wake it up. It's got two little brains in there. And we'll ask it to extend a docking probe. It basically has the same docking system that a Soyuz has.
Rassvet's hatch will open on flight day 7 as ISS cosmonauts Oleg Kotov and Alexander Skvortsov install air ducts to cleanse the air in the new module. Actual outfitting of Rassvet will not occur until after Atlantis leaves the station. During STS-132, Reisman, Bowen, and Good will step outside in round-robin teams to perform 3 scheduled spacewalks. On EVA-1, Reisman and Bowen will install the redundant S-Gant antenna and its boom on the station's Z1 starboard truss. Sellers and Dyson will operate the station's robotic arm.
My job is actually to go out on the tip of the robot arm during the spacewalk, grab the boom first, and then while I hold onto the boom, they fly me up to the top of the space station, and then Steve and I will plant that thing like a flag in the very, very top. And then I go back and get the dish, and we put the dish on top of the boom. We have a new tool platform for Dexter that allow this robot to carry out large pieces of equipment and do the same kind of remove and replace activities we do during a spacewalk.
On EVA-2, Bowen and Good are scheduled to remove and replace 3 of the 6 solar array batteries on the station's P6 truss, as Sellers and Reisman maneuver the ICC carrier robotically.
When we move the pallet around, they can grab a battery out of the pallet, put the battery in the truss, and then they grab another battery. So we need to move the pallet around.
It'll take pretty much the whole time, about 6.5 hours to get out there, all the way out there, translate out to the end of the truss, and do the batteries, and come back inside.
On the 3rd and final EVA, Good and Reisman are scheduled to remove and replace the remaining 3 batteries. Sellers and Dyson will provide robotic assistance with the station's big arm.
We'll take those out there and take them off the pallet and put them into the truss out there. And then we'll take the old ones off the truss and put them back onto the pallet.
You work with people every single day, and you get out to the contractors and you get to meet the people that have poured, their life's work into making something function the way it's supposed to function, and it's eye-opening. You really get a sense of how big this team is and what it can accomplish.
The people that work in this business are doing it because they love it. They're so dedicated to what they do.
I think from the beginning of human spaceflight to where we are today may someday be referred to as the golden age of space travel. It's great to pull everybody together and help them realize the importance of what they're doing, and at the same time, you got to really appreciate every minute of our jobs.
I've been asked to talk to you briefly this morning about Atlantis. Obviously, it is my favorite space shuttle. As was already noted, 5 of my 7 flights into orbit were aboard Atlantis. That includes my first 3 flights as well as my most recent one, which was doing assembly on the International Space Station. Atlantis really is a great flying bird, and that mostly goes to the credit of the outstanding team of engineers and technicians we have at the Kennedy Space Center that prepare Atlantis as well as her sister vehicles for flight into space. First of all, this morning I'd like to share a summary of some interesting facts about Atlantis and its illustrious history. After that, I'll be narrating a brief video summary of my flights on Atlantis, as well as a couple other noteworthy flights. That video has been prepared for me by the folks here at Public Affairs. Atlantis is NASA's fourth space-rated space shuttle. It was named for a two-masted ship that served as the primary research vessel for the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute in Massachusetts. It served in that capacity from 1930 to 1966. It might be interesting to know that when we flew on my first space shuttle flight, the second shuttle flight aboard Atlantis in 1985, we actually flew a piece of the plank, the decking plank, from the Atlantis vessel. And after the flight, we returned it back to Woods Hole. The construction of Atlantis began on March 30th, 1980, just over 30 years ago now. And it was completed in about half the man hours it was required to assemble the first space-rated spacecraft, the Columbia. It weighed 151,000 pounds and rolled out of its assembly facilities there at Palmdale, California in 1985. And that made it about 3.5 tons lighter than what Columbia had been. It was transported via 747 piggyback to the Cape. It completed its flight readiness firing on September 5th of 1985 and was launched on its first flight in October 3rd, 1985. Some of the more significant flights that it completed, obviously its maiden flight, STS-51J. On STS-30, we launched the first interplanetary probe from a space shuttle. That was Magellan. STS-34, we sent Galileo off to explore Jupiter. STS-37, one of my flights, was the deploy of the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory. On STS-71, the first docking to a Mir space station was completed. It was also the first time that we exchanged U.S./Russian crews. STS-76 was the first time that we performed a U.S. spacewalk on the exterior of Mir. And it was also the first time that we used the new Mission Control Center for an entry. STS-106 was the first time that the crew had entered into the service module and then did the final preparations of it in advance of the first long-duration stay of a crew on board the ISS. STS-98 was the launching of the Destiny Laboratory to the ISS. And that flight also included the 100th EVA performed by the U.S. in our space flight history. STS-98 was the launching of the Destiny Laboratory to ISS. STS-104 was the addition of the Quest airlock to the station. STS-110, my most recent flight, was the addition of S0 to the truss network on the station. STS-122 was a launch of the Columbus Laboratory for ESA and its attachment to the station. STS-125 was the last flight to service the Hubble Space Telescope. And STS-129 was the last time we used the shuttle to exchange crew on the ISS. Some numbers for you. To date, 31 flights. That includes a total of 282 days on orbit, during which the Atlantis traveled about 116 million miles during 4,462 orbits of the Earth. 185 crew members have participated in those 31 flights, and they included 7 dockings to Mir and 10 dockings to the International Space Station. Now, next comes a snippet of videos that has been prepared by the folks here of Atlantis' maiden flight, its first flight to dock to the space station Mir, and then a quick summary of my 5 flights on Atlantis. STS-51J, Atlantis' first launch, was in 1985, and this is never going to be routine, and it's something I'm really going to miss seeing. 4.5 million pounds of hardware, nearly 7 million pounds of thrust coming off the pad. A pretty rocky ride during first stage. My first flight was 61B. We launched 3 communication satellites and performed 2 spacewalks to investigate space station construction techniques. Ease and access were the two experiments we conducted, and we thought we did such a good job on this that we would go into business. We decided to call ourselves the Ace Construction Company, and it's also during this time frame that I was quoted as saying, "Let's go build a space station." STS-27 was my next flight on Atlantis. It was a classified flight, and all we could show you is us having some fun with an NFL football that we flew on board. That football was subsequent to the flight returned to Pete Rozelle, the commissioner of football, at that year's Super Bowl. On STS-37, we deployed the Compton Ray Observatory and Gamma Ray Observatory, and we had to go out and manually deploy the KU band antenna that you see here, thus saving that satellite from being about a $550 million piece of big space junk. Jay Apt and I, after we'd completed that, looked inside the windows there on the aft flight deck and saw the guys inside eating our food. After we'd completed our checkout of the Gamma Ray, we deployed it, and we were supposed to be inside the airlock, except I think the only thing that was inside the airlock at that point was our toes, because we wanted to have a great view as the satellite was released and deployed. We did a planned spacewalk on this flight also to look at a prototype space station piece of hardware called SETA, and thus the little railroad placard that you saw there. Here we are demonstrating one of the three configurations of the SETA cart during that flight. Couple views here of STS-71, the first docking mission of Shuttle to the Mir station. I think you can kind of tell how close the shuttle components got to the Mir station. And one of the reasons that on STS-74, my next flight, we added a Russian-made docking compartment to the Mir station. And that was then used by all subsequent shuttle flights to dock to the Mir station. It's very similar in design and structure and purpose to the hardware that we're flying here on STS-132 that's called MRM-1. A view as we're docking to the Mir station using the docking compartment. And another view as we leave the docking compartment mated to the Mir station. You can see that they also use that to mount quite a bit of hardware on the exterior. A view of us in the aft flight deck windows looking back to Mir as we depart, all smiling to the crew. I don't know what this picture is supposed to tell you. This is STS-110. This is when we installed the 43-foot long S0 segment to the station. This is the center part of the station to which all the other components have been attached. A great view as we're going across the Nile Delta and the Red Sea. And this is the last close-up view I had of the ISS as we departed and did our fly around. A very beautiful touchdown of STS-110 at the end of the mission at the Kennedy Space Center. That's always a great feeling to have a nice, pretty rollout, get back there to see your family and friends.
Appreciate it, man. Here's Steve. Russ, how you been, man? Good. How about you? Well, that's Shrim's a German name.
Oh, I know.
So this is a relatively easy day for us. Get a chance to drive it.
Let's wait till
Since you've all done this before, let's get in. We'll go over the 1, 2, 3 steps to get it rolling, and we'll start rolling. Driver, make sure they get in first. Oh yeah, it's easy. Everything crawl up in there. Once he gets in there, get yourself positioned, get yourself settled. You can pull the handles back. Go ahead and get your position. Look out your prism. Once you get to the area where you're going to get out, pull them back, press the buttons down, and it'll lock the brakes. Okay? You can just slam this thing forward. Understand, if it's an emergency and you're in a hurry and you haven't thought to put this ramp up, you can still drive it with a ramp down. It'll drag all the way to wherever you got to go.
you doing? Great. Nice to see you guys.
I'm Garrett.
Very good, thank you.
How are you?
Hey guys!
How long have you sitting here?
Thanks for coming out.
Here about. This is our first time being here to watch it roll out, so this is absolutely
Awesome. Is it not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? And we're just hanging out with the launch director over there talking about how this is one of the, it is, in my mind, the most incredible machine that humanity has ever built. Absolutely. Absolutely, right?
Yes.
You got the one spaceport going on right here in the entire world. This is it.
like says, you guys have to be more excited than us.
Pleasure. Be safe, guys.
Hey, what is your title?
Yeah? It's good. Can we get a handshake?
Oh, such a pleasure.
Nice to meet you. TJ?
Can I get a high five, man?
Nice to see you. Congratulations. Hey, I like your seat here. Look at that. Just like this one. Nice. Very cool. Good to see you.
Thank you. You see the big shuttle up there? You see the big shuttle? Yeah. It's moving out to the pad. What's the black thing for? The black thing is what takes it out there. That's the crawler. Why did it change? You're seeing the side of it now. Before you were seeing the back side. Now you see the side of it. How cool is that? What does it look like?
Yeah, he doesn't go away.
Go Shuttle! And go Gators.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Launch Pad 39A. We are here with the 6 astronauts for the STS-132 mission, Space Shuttle Atlantis' mission to the International Space Station. I'm going to give the microphone immediately over to the commander for the STS-132 mission, Ken Ham, and then he'll talk to the crew and we'll entertain questions. Ken Ham?
Thanks, Allard. I'm going to start with an excuse. When we flew in here a couple days ago for this training period for us at the Cape, we knew that most of you guys, the press, were really tired, and that's because you had just filmed STS-131 landing that morning, and we were flying in the afternoon. You guys have been up all day. Now the roles are reversed. You guys have probably been sleeping since then. And we were out here riding the crawler last night. I think we got back to bed maybe 2:33 in the morning, something like that. I'm not sure what time it was. And then we were up at 5:30 this morning. So we're the tired ones, and that's our excuse. It's kind of interesting. There's been a lot of discussion these days about the future of the space program. I'm beating you guys to the punch on all your questions so that you can't ask it. And I think maybe one of the bottom lines or the main thoughts is that there is uncertainty in the future as we try to figure out how to implement the president's vision, which I'm sure we're going to do, but that leads to uncertainty, and uncertainty is always a little bit scary. However, living in the moment, I think for everybody involved in this business, whether you are an engineer in Houston, an engineer in California, a wrench turner up there on the pad, a press person that's here to cover this kind of event, everybody wanted to be in the space business. And guys, this is what's going on right now. We're launching shuttles, we're landing shuttles, we are shooting the X-37 vehicle hopefully this evening. I believe there is a progress undocking sometime today from Space Station, which is going to free up a port for us to bring up another module to put on that port. So there's an incredible amount of activity going on right now in the space world, and we should all be enjoying it. I can tell you for sure, the 6 of us are. All right, enough about where we are today. Some introductions. Tony Antonelli just got selected as a captain in the U.S. Navy. Second space flight for him. He's having a ball. He keeps me from making big, huge mistakes and lets me make the little ones, which is perfect. Dr. Garrett Reisman, we call him Big G. Can you tell why? One of our spacewalkers, he is leading EVA number 1, MS-2, Colonel in the Air Force, now retired, Mike Good. We call him Bueno because there's a translation there. Another EVA spacewalker, he's going to be leading EVA number 3. Moving down the line, MS-3, Steve-O Bowen, Captain, United States Navy. Another spacewalker, so these 3 guys here in the middle are our fantastic trio of spacewalkers. Steve is leading EVA number 2, which is kind of neat. It's rare to have 3 different lead spacewalkers on one flight. And that's mostly due to the fact that all 3 of these guys have been outside in spacesuits before on different missions. And they're fantastic. Lastly down there, Dr. Piers Sellers. He's sort of our experience on the flight. This will be his 3rd. He is our primary robotics arm operator. He is also our payload commander, being that our primary payload is the MRM-1 module, which is a Russian-built module. I think there's really only one of us, of the 6, that really understands that module, and it's Piers. So make it happen right, and don't let anything happen to you. Piers is also our science officer on the crew. So if you guys have any questions about payload science and what's going on the International Space Station, you can ask any one of us, but we're going to turn around and point at Piers because he's going to answer it for us. I think that's all I have. No, I know that's all I have on the way of an introduction, and I think we can open it up to questions and answers if you'd like, and I'll stop talking.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com and Space.com. Given the time that you spent with Atlantis last night and through this morning, what does it mean to each of you to be assigned to the last flight, or what is planned to be the last flight of Atlantis?
I almost passed the microphone. we figured that question was coming, and we've come up with a tagline for you. This is the first last flight of Atlantis. And I'll stop talking. You answer that.
That was a great answer. Good job, boss. Next question.
No, seriously, next question.
Okay, well, if it's, hi, Bill Horowitz, CBS News. I was wondering if I could get the 3 lead spacewalkers to give us an overview of each of the EVA, since we hadn't had the Houston briefings yet, give us a sense of what's happening, and not to hog this, but if Pierce could give us a little overview of the Russian module, that'd be great too. Thanks.
I would be happy to. We're doing 3 EVAs. The first EVA will be myself and Steve, and we're going to go outside, and we have, in addition to the Russian module that we're bringing up, we have a new antenna, and that antenna has a large boom and a dish. It comes up in 2 pieces, and Steve and I will assemble that antenna on the very top of the space station. So it's nice for us because then it gives us a good fallback position. In the future, we can install your satellite TV if anybody needs some help with that. We'll be experts at it. So we put that antenna together, and then once we complete that, we have a new piece of equipment, an upgrade to the Dexter robot, which is the Canadian robot that we brought up earlier. And it's a new tool platform that will enhance its capabilities to do work outside. So we'll be installing that at the end of that spacewalk. And that concludes the first spacewalk, which will be on flight day 4. And so now I turn it over to talk about the second spacewalk to Steve-O.
On flight day 6, we have our second spacewalk, and the second spacewalk's all about batteries. We'll go out, Mike and I will head out, and we'll go out and prep P6 for the battery changeout. And we're going to get hopefully 3 of them done for sure, and keep working until we run out of time. And that should set us up well for the third and final spacewalk.
Okay, on the third spacewalk, it'll be back to Garrett and I. We'll finish up the battery task, and these batteries are not double A's. You know, my brother thinks, you know, what's the big deal going out there and doing a couple batteries in space? But these are actually about 400-pound batteries. They're the size of a big, like a big speaker or suitcase. And they're way out there at the end of the P6 truss. It's very similar to what the 127 mission did a few months ago. We're just going to be on the other side of the truss, and I'm really looking forward to going out and getting that view. And once we finish up with the batteries, we are going to journey back to the shuttle into the payload bay, and we're flying up on the sidewall carrier a grapple fixture. We're actually going to go out, EVA, get it, and bring it back inside with us. And then it'll be used on a future spacewalk. They'll take it back out, do some work on it inside, install a bracket, and then they'll take it back outside and install it out on the station, and it'll be a point of departure then for future robotic arm operations. And now, science and MRM-1.
Yes, I'm the MRM-1 whisperer. MRM-1's quite a big payload. It's a Russian module. It's in the back of the shuttle right now, or will be. And on flight day 5, we'll reach in with the arm, pull it out, and plug it into the bottom of the Russian segment. And what that will give us is a kind of a long tube docking extension so that spacecraft can dock to the ISS without coming close to other structure. And that's the main function. Otherwise, it'll be a place to put things and do some science.
Hi, James Dean from Florida today. Another spacewalk question. Wondering what the possibility is, do you think, for having a nitrogen tank removal added onto your list of work? And also, we learned from the last mission that there was this possible shock hazard out at the end of P6. And so how are you guys handling that, and how much of a concern is that as you go out there for the first time knowing about this new issue?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, you've been following along pretty closely. I'm impressed. That's very impressive. For the nitrogen tank, that's something that we've been following very closely. We followed the developments on the last mission. Currently, there are no plans for us to go out and work on that tank during this mission. The program is said that they happy operating it for an extended period of time without doing a change out. However, we did, this is NASA, so we always have backup plans to our backup plans. And so we did the other day, while we were doing some work in our big pool where we practice spacewalks, take a look at that, and we'll be ready to perform any actions the program might call upon us to do with regard to the nitrogen tank. And as far as the, I'll pass off the other guys to talk about how they feel about getting zapped with electricity. Here.
What's that? Go on.
Yeah, as far as the what actually drove our task on EVA2, where we have to go set up P6, heading outboard the Sarge, there's a potential plasma issue they wanted to resolve, and we're actually flying up some new workstations that are better isolated and should allow us to safely operate out there and mitigate that plasma hazard.
Kevin Oliver with WFTV. As astronauts, you guys are always thinking ahead, so I'm going to throw this out there. What are you guys going to do when this is all over with and there's 81 astronauts in the Corps and only 12 seats a year on the Soyuz?
Well, that's a good question. It's something that we're all going to have to face. I'm living in denial a little bit right now and just and really enjoying the moment. Our focus is right behind us right now and just on this mission. There's a lot to think about, and I'm really excited about that. And someday I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do when I'm done flying and when I grow up. And, but for right now, I've got a great job, and I'm really enjoying it.
Andrew Rennie from Southern FM in Australia. A question for Steve Bowen. How does being aboard the space station compare with being aboard a submarine?
It's interesting because for years people had told me, oh, it's nothing like it, but I figured I might be the first person to really know. And the first thing that struck me when I crossed the hatch was the odor was very similar to a submarine. That lived in, recycled atmosphere, I think it's just a natural thing. A space station is just incredible, and it's actually got a little more living space per person than a submarine does, but its mission is obviously very different. And I think living up there would be very similar. You can ask Garrett what it was like to actually live there for an extended period of time, and someday I hope to be able to do that myself.
James Dean again for Florida Today. Colonel Ham, wonder if you could describe a little bit what it's like to ride that crawler, and also recognizing that you're a little tired from that, do you think you have a chance to see the launch tonight, and any thoughts about the X-37 compared to your vehicle?
The X-37's smaller. I don't know a whole lot about the X-37. I think it's a fantastic experiment endeavor that they're trying to do. I think a lot of it's classified, so much of that is not out for the public, and I have not read anything beyond what you guys have probably been privy to. Riding the crawler last night was absolutely fantastic. A couple of us were sitting around about quarter to midnight or so, and an email came in from our launch director, Mike Leinbach, and he said, you guys got to come out here and see this, because they had the xenons on to make it extra beautiful. So those of us that got the email woke the rest of us up. They're all coming to their door like, what are you doing to us? I said, come on, put a flight suit on, we'll go on out there. And we ended up staying for hours, because it is absolutely incredible to see that, I loosely call it a battleship on the ground. If you've ever been on the crawler and on the MLP, it is like a battleship. It's navy gray, it's built like one, it has watertight doors, and being a Navy guy, I kind of identify with that and I feel at home. So we had a great time out there. We took a lot of pictures. Some of them actually turned out to be kind of artistic, and I think it has something to do with the xenons and the way the light goes through the atmosphere or something. But it was just one of those moments that we shared with each other to remind us the reality of what we're going to do, and that is part of what I was alluding to earlier about how fun this business is. Thanks.
I was just curious if you could describe any differences or quirks between Atlantis and the other two ships.
That's a good question. I've gotten to fly on Discovery. I think we've covered them all with different experiences. Piers, which ones have you been on? Nobody's been on Endeavor? You went on Endeavor. We've covered the 3 of them that we're still flying. between us. The obvious difference from a technical perspective that actually drives our mission duration is a NASA acronym called SPITS. It's basically a power cord, an extension cord, where we can get power from the space station and power some of the space shuttle orbiter systems and save the orbiters cryo and stay up longer. So that the major difference is Atlantis is missing that power cord, so that will drive our mission duration. We'll do our best to keep the lights down and all the extra computers off so we can stay up there as long as there's work to be done. But that's the big difference.
Bill Harwood again. Maybe it's for Piers, or I don't know who it's for, but who does robotics on this mission? And I assume that's done from the lab, or are they going to have the workstation? Is that ever getting into cupola anytime soon?
Well, we're hearing they're going to move everything into the cupola pretty soon. So we'll be sitting there in our sun lounger, doing all the work, looking out the window. It's going to be terrific. So looking forward to about a week's work every day in this greenhouse hanging up underneath the station.
Are you the arm operator, though, for installation?
Garrett's doing some, and I'm doing some. And Tracy Caldwell, who's already up there, is going to be supporting us.
Okay, thanks. And one for the commander. You mentioned when you got here that you got a veteran crew and that you all work well together. Can you just tell us a little bit about the advantages of that in terms of training and what you guys expect, everything else? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good question. What are the advantages of having a veteran crew? And they're probably more than you might realize. We've all been rookies or first-time flyers before, and I think we would all agree that when you don't know what you're getting into, you require more training. You require more time to get your head around all the daily operations that go on up there, as well as the primary mission objectives. But having done it once, lived through the whole year-long training program, lived through a mission, lived through the post-flight, that's a huge benefit going into a second mission. We were able to credit a lot of our training that is in a normal flow and cut it out due to the fact that we've flown recently. I think all of us, except for Piers, have flown in the last 2 years. And Piers, it wasn't that long ago before that, in your last flight. So we're all very current on orbiter systems and space station systems. And that helped really ease our burden of training. And from a sort of a emotional standpoint, if you will, when you fly the second time, I know I'm looking forward to the ride to ascent or the ride to orbit, because I think I will see and remember a lot more than last time. Last time was a Yahoo 8 minutes and 23 seconds. That's pretty much what I remember. This time I think I'll remember a lot more.
Kind of a follow-up on that question, recognizing again you've all been through this before, just wondering what do you get out of TCDT in addition to the bonus crawler ride with this dress rehearsal and everything you're doing over the next few days? What's enjoyable about that, and how does it prepare you for your launch?
I'll pass it down the line for some of the enjoyable stuff. I think I'll skip that part. But for the work aspect, we have done this before, but I think for all but Piers, we've only done TCDT once, and it was a year ago. So you don't remember everything that you did a year ago on one particular day. So just going through everything that we need to do for the mission one more time, a little closer to launch, and just getting to see it again and have it refreshed. So I don't think we're learning too many things that are brand new during this trip in our training, but we are getting refreshed on stuff that we've seen before. And then we have gotten to do a couple of enjoyable things. So we'll see if Garrett's probably best at describing the enjoyable stuff.
Well, we mentioned a crawler ride. That's definitely the highlight. But also, you get to drive a tank, which is which is pretty cool. Now, I have a 1975 International Scout, which is pretty close. The armor plating on that thing is just a little bit thinner than what we drove yesterday, which is an armored personnel carrier that we could use if we have the slide down, if we had an emergency on the pad and we had to get away of the vehicle in a hurry before it takes off. We have some slide wire baskets and an escape system. So we hop into these baskets that are on these wires all the way from up there, all the way down to the ground, so we can woo down in a hurry if we had to. And then there's a bunker right over there. And then if we needed to get even further away, if that wasn't safe enough, they have a tank there that we can hop in and drive to safety. And we had to practice driving that tank, and we did that yesterday. And so that's not something I get to do on a daily basis, and it was really fun.
Good job. I'll just add real quick. It's just my favorite part is just getting down here to Florida, being close to the vehicle. It just brings it home that, hey, you're going to go launch into space in a couple weeks. And it's just great to be down here and see the folks that have worked so hard to get this vehicle ready, and just to train with them and go through it once. And then we'll know we're ready, and we'll be back in a few weeks to do it for real.
All right, that's our last question, gentlemen. We just want to have a quick photo opportunity with you, with and without your glasses, and then we'll get you back on your way.
Thanks, Doug.
Let us know when you're done.
about that.
Like mid-range.
All the stations all the way through 17 on 11-hour hold, so they'll finally say they're ready to go on them. That's really to be able to do 3 dimensions, flip it free.
Yeah, this one.
That's where it rolls from, right?
Right.
Slides out there?
Yeah, it rolls from
That's what they put it on yesterday.
Delta's got a covered one.
I just want you to know what's in here. We've got our 3 and 6 single bottle spares for you guys. The flashlights and Travis's bag of tools that he won't let us play with.
Ah, well done.
Just wanted to show you this. Nice quote.
Bravo, bro.
So I can do my spiel. Guys, to you, your number 4 is going to be Chris Minert, who just received a silver suit about an hour ago. So what I'm going to do is you guys stick to your plan. You do your 2-2. And as 2 of you leave the white room, I'm going to stick a white suit with you. Mr. Commander, sir, it is your duty.
Starting up the car, and she's between. She's going to open the doors and say, let's get out of here for a while. And, chances are there may be some O2 displacement cars. She cameras, try to avoid coming here. Primarily. Now, you need to hit both of them. It doesn't matter which order it is, you need to hit both of them. Yes, sir. Baskets and you'll be good to go. In a worst case scenario, though, you can have a lot more fire, a lot more vapors, and that sort of stuff. Actually have to adjust the flow pattern. We want to put them out, but it'll certainly push away those vapors and smoke and heat and that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, sure. Absolutely.
Let's come over here. See what happens to you when you... Okay. And basic slide bar baffle. I recommend when you face it, rifle does not go down. Never weapon and load in. Hooks up here. And, last person in. Make sure your hands are up here, not out here. Look back. Just do a double check. Get it. This guillotine's going to cut this Nomex and then you're on your way. Now tomorrow, last person in. If that doesn't cut, you'll find 3 at the base of the cab. Chances are that's your primary. Number 2 is down by...
Just like they taught you in Boston.
Exactly. I got lost.
STM QBSE, slide wire basket release, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Glad it didn't rust. That's good. I'm getting you that road.
Yep, we're good. All right, well, we'll see you down in the bunker and let's be out of here.
Comes back over toward pad B, or if they tell you to go this way and come back out to where I'm at 85, which is where the big gantry is out there. That's where I'm stating which one I am. Plus, I'm the one with the big mouth. I'll do a lot of yelling. When you're in there, you will have hands on you and eyes on you at all times. Okay? We'll either have a rescueman or closeout crew touching you at all times. You're never going to get...
Going in the bunker?
Let's
share that one. Yeah. So basically, you walk off. The first closeout crew member they see to be the communicator.
They all got flashing red lights and they all beep. Bobby won't hear the beeping.
Pop it in, good to go. All right, if one of your partners finds that they're contaminated, they're up underneath the shower for a while, you can just go ahead and disconnect this one.
Some of the fifth things feel like good game.
With 2 people, I definitely will get over that about. And remember that when you get down here, your prongs up the front basket, your chain dragging behind you. Navy types, good old anchor chain. Everybody else, yeah, it's chain. rule number one. When you do hop out, grab the bars. Get your weight on it so that... No other questions? Okay, folks, have a good one. We'll see you Saturday, I guess.
Yeah. Tours. See you all next time. Thanks.
My thing.
Yeah, I'll get it when we get out.
There you go.
Got it.
There it is. Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like us to add or change?
Real well.
Appreciate it.
This was Piers Sellers in 2002, more than 200 miles above the Earth. In 2006, he was back there again, one of a small army of astronauts building a laboratory in space. Each time he's travelled on a space shuttle, but NASA plans to retire the fleet at the end of this year, meaning when he launches again, he'll be the last Briton to ever fly aboard one.
You know, we're coming to the end of the shuttle program. There were 5 shuttles. There are 3 left. Hoping that we close out the program with 3 surviving shuttles and they get the respect they deserve. They're real milestones in spaceflight.
They've been taking freight to the International Space Station and now weighing more than 400 tons and spanning 360 feet wide, that's almost complete. You must be very proud of the part you've played and others have played in building the space station.
I am very, very proud to have been part of this huge group of wonderful people who've done it. And, you know, I'm a fully paid up member of the team that built the space station, but it's been tremendous fun to be part of it.
It all began here for Piers Sellers. He got the space bug while a pupil at Cranbrook School in Kent. And inspired by his achievement, the students here today will be following his latest mission.
It's incredible, really, to go to exactly the same school as one of so few people who have ever gone into space before. It's really inspiring.
School for everyone seems dull, but if you actually work hard, you can get somewhere really high, like space.
Atlantis and Piers Sellers are prepped for liftoff, and when they launch it will be a truly historic moment, marking the beginning of the end of the 30-year Space Shuttle program.
Well, folks, thanks for showing up again. I think it's been not quite a month since we were here last. Pretty quick, at least it seems to from our point of view. And I bet that you guys are a lot more rested than the last time we were here, because that was a pretty busy day. And a couple of us were talking on the way out here about what's been going on Space Station these days. And I think a Progress just undocked yesterday. I'm not exactly sure. And I'm pretty darn sure that a Soyuz has to relocate from the port that we're going to put our MRM module. and then go to the aft part of space station. And all that's got to happen in the next few days before we get off the ground. So once again, we're in a situation where there's a heck of a lot going on in space, and it's pretty darn cool. We had a great trip down today. Unfortunately, one of our airplanes broke on takeoff, had to go back to JSC to get another airplane, and he caught up with us, and we actually ended up coming across here in a diamond formation. Hopefully we looked a little better today. I think the reports were good. Anyway, we are ready to launch. We've completed every bit of training we can, and we're confident. We appreciate all the hard work from the 104 team down here. They've done an amazing job getting the vehicle turned around on the pad and ready to go. And from absolutely every report I've read, the airplane, the spaceship is ready to go, and we're ready to fly. So look for a good show on Friday. Thanks. Sure.
The Space Shuttle Atlantis is prepped and ready for launch about 6 hours from now, as long as the weather holds. Atlantis and its 6 astronauts are set to blast off this afternoon to the International Space Station. It will carry a Russian research module and fresh batteries for the station. This is scheduled to be the last trip into space for Atlantis, the last one. It is to be retired after it returns from this 12-day mission. And here's a quick look back at the Space Shuttle Atlantis's long career. Now, construction started on Atlantis in March 1980. It took just over 4 years to complete. Now, the shuttle was named after the main research boat for a U.S. oceanic research facility. Atlantis was first launched on October the 3rd, 1985. Its first space flight was a classified mission for the U.S. Department of Defense. Atlantis will have flown 32 missions to space by the time it retires.
From Launch Complex 39 at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, this is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 3 hours and holding. We are now about to enter the final 5 hours of the countdown for the launch of Atlantis on mission STS-132. This is the 132nd launch of the Space Shuttle program, the 32nd launch of Space Shuttle Atlantis, and the 34th shuttle flight to the International Space Station. This will be a 12-day mission with the landing at Kennedy Space Center currently planned for May 26th at 8:44 a.m. There are 6 astronauts who will shortly be aboard Atlantis en route to a rendezvous with the International Space Station. There are 3 planned EVAs, or spacewalks, during the mission that will last approximately 6 hours during the 1-week period that Atlantis will be docked with the International Space Station. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 3 hours and holding, with 1 hour, 14 minutes, 53 seconds remaining in this planned built-in hold. Right now joining us on console here in Firing Room 4 of the Launch Control Center is Angie Brewer. She is the flow director for Orbiter Atlantis for our Space Shuttle mission STS-132, and Angie has been the flow director for quite a number of years now, I believe. Angie, about how long have you been working with Atlantis?
About 5 years.
5 years.
Well, as the flow director.
All right. Well, we're going to look at some video of what it took to get Atlantis ready for this flight. But first of all, can you tell us about how much time was involved in each of the major operations to get Atlantis ready to go?
Yeah, we spend about 120 days in the OPF in the processing facility, in the horizontal, doing that, and then we roll over to the VAB, the big building out here, and go vertical, and we spend usually about 7 days there, but we had to spend a couple extra days because of weather, so we spent 9 days there, and then at the pad it's usually about 25 days, but this is the 22nd day, so that's how long we've been processing for this launch day.
All right, well, let's go ahead and roll the tape, and we'll see what it's taken to get Atlantis ready.
Okay, this is Atlantis in the OPF Bay 1, and they're getting ready to remove an engine, and that's a specialty forklift that we call a heister.
So that would have been after it came back from the last flight, I gather.
Yes, we remove all the engines after each flight, and they get refurbished and tested.
And after that happens, I guess they go over to another facility so that I guess they can have some testing and
yeah, they take them over to their shop over the engine shop over there, and
I guess
you can
that's
see
what we're seeing there.
You can see them. They've done their hookups and they're getting ready to run tests, and just verify that the engine's ready to go for whatever next mission it's scheduled to be on.
And each of the engines has to go through this process. Is that right?
Yeah. After each firing, they get reprocessed and refurbished.
All right. And we're back over at the orbiter processing facility. Which bay are we in now?
We're in OPF Bay 1, and you can see that the technician's touching up a repair on the tile. There's 22 to 24,000 tiles on the vehicle. And right here, it looks like they're getting ready to remove a window 8, one of the overhead windows. We do inspections, and sometimes we have to remove 2 or 3 windows, maybe more. It depends on what the inspectors find.
After the previous flight.
Right.
So now let's see what's happening here. This is different.
They're actually removing the pane, the window pane,
okay.
And they'll take it over and inspect it. Now here they're removing the RCCs on the wing leading edge, and that's so we can do corrosion inspections behind these RCC panels.
And that's basically what provides thermal protection for the orbiter.
The RCC
during
panel.
Re-entry, right along the leading edge of the wings.
Yeah, and you could see he was using a specialty light to find any defects, and we're getting ready to reinstall window 8 there. You can see it's going back in place.
All of these things are in chronological order as we go through them, so that's why we go back from one event to the other, because each is as it happened on the day that it happened, which this window reinstallation was on the 13th of January.
Yeah, you can see the defects highlighted with that light that he had there. And this is what we call the chin panel, and that's up right underneath the nose cap. They're getting ready to install it here. There's a gap filler between, you can see that white fabric there, and that has to be replaced. Usually it lasts about 2 or 3 flights, and then we have to repair it. And that's quite an extensive effort. It takes almost the whole flow to refurbish
really?
that. Yes, it does. And here we're getting ready to install the OBSS.
Orbiter boom sensing system.
Yes. And that's on the starboard side of the vehicle. And you can see the yellow ground support equipment that's used to help install the
We can
OBSS.
see both arms. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, one's for inspection, the other's for
Grabbing payloads and manipulating
right.
astronauts around to various parts.
And we're doing a main engine installation here, I gather.
Yep, this is still in the engine shop. They're getting it ready to put on the heister, and it's headed over to the bay, OPF Bay 1, for installation.
And I think you said that the order that they go over there for installation, they're done in a particular order for installation. Is that right?
Well, in the horizontal, the top engine, the engine 1, has to go in first because you don't want to be lifting in. Physically can't install over the other 2 lower engines. So if we do an R&R in the OPF, we have to put the top one in first. if we ever do an engine removal at the pad, it really doesn't matter there.
And what is that?
We're installing
device?
the dome heat shields and the eyelids here. This is the protective cover that goes around the engines to kind of finish off the insulation and protect the.
Okay. So that's insulation around the engines themselves.
Yes. You can see the tile on the heat shields there. And then this is the barge bringing our external tank.
That was on March the 1st this year, coming in on the barge Pegasus.
It's a pretty sight to see the external tank come in. They offload it pretty quickly. They just take it right in. Here it is being offloaded. Take it in and rotate it to vertical in the VAB there, and then put it in a checkout cell.
So it has some testing then before it gets.
Yeah, they'll inspect it up and down and make sure that there's no problems with the tank. And here's the hatch.
The orbiter hatch, right?
They're closing the hatch, getting ready for orbiter rollout here. Pull testing some gap fillers. And this is, I think they're working on cameras here.
Camera installation,
yeah,
right.
They're getting ready to install these cameras in the mid-body. We've got cameras all over in the mid-body, and that's when we see pictures from on orbit, that's where they're coming from. And this is the rotor speed brake area, and they're getting ready to close out the this area.
That's thermal insulation there being applied to it?
Putting the panel on, and they gain access into different areas with through these access doors, and they are removed.
And we're back in the vehicle assembly building now.
Yep, they're lifting the tank up and over and going to make it to the solid rocket boosters that are waiting over on the MLP.
I guess after that's made it, I guess they have the shuttle interface test, I guess.
Yep, they make the connections and they test it. And then here we're doing our main landing gear functional right before we roll out. Test to make sure that the gear work correctly before we roll.
And that's the last time the gears are actually deployed before launch, is that right?
That's right. And then they're retracted, and then we put the vehicle on the orbiter transport system, the OTS, and roll it out. This is it's getting backed out of OPF Bay 1. This is part of our team that's walking her over to the VAB.
I guess that's sort of an important day for the team because that means so much work that's required in the hangar has been finished, and it means it's pretty much ready to go from an orbiter standpoint.
Yeah, it's been a long, pretty good flow, and it's nice to see her roll over, and here she's getting lifted up in the transfer aisle of the VAB.
The lifting sling that was just attached.
And rotated to vertical. And that's a pretty amazing sight to see the vehicle get rotated like that and then lifted up. It goes up and then over and then lowered back down into place just like the external tank was earlier. While we're processing in the OPF, the tank and the boosters are being prepped and readied in various facilities, and then they're all brought together here in the VAB.
And how long does Atlantis need in the VAB before rollout?
It's normally 7 days.
7 days.
And we were ready at 7 days, but we had some weather issues with this one, so we had to stay a couple extra days.
And here's rollout from the vehicle assembly building out to launch pad 39A. It was on April the 22nd. Usually done in the middle of the night for weather reasons, I think is the main reason. Is that right?
And the crew happened to be here because we were having the countdown demonstration test just a couple days later, so they happened to be on site for their crew training.
So they were here for the rollout. And it's going out to the pad at the breakneck speed of 0.8 miles per hour. And that's it. We're back live on the launch pad. Well, now, tell us, once Atlantis gets back, what will be in store for it as soon as it arrives? What will you be working to do?
Well, once Atlantis lands after this mission, we'll take her back into the processing facility and prep her just like normal, because right now we are currently the launch on need rescue vehicle for the last scheduled flight, which is, I think, STS-134 Endeavour.
So there'll be almost a standard type processing flow, even though at the moment it's not clear if there'll be another launch for Atlantis. It still has to be ready to launch.
Yes,
so that's what you'll be doing, is
Yep.
just processing as if it's going to fly in any event.
Yep, we've got all of our requirements and work ahead of us. We've got it all planned out, and we know what we're going to be doing, and we'll be ready to take her back in the processing facility and get to work on her.
Well, Angie, thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
You're walking us through this flow for Atlantis, and we know what's been underway to get it ready for flight. And we're at T-minus 3 hours and holding, with an hour, 2 minutes, 50 seconds remaining in this built-in hold. This is Shuttle Launch Control. This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 3 hours and holding, with 50 minutes, 33 seconds remaining in the planned built-in hold. Joining us now is Robbie Ashley. He is the STS-132 Payload Mission Manager for Space Shuttle Atlantis. And Robbie, I know you're going to talk through some of the milestones that we've been going through to get this payload ready to fly that's in Atlantis' payload bay right now. But about how long has this flow taken to put all these pieces and parts together for launch?
Well, George, the team here, the mission processing team here, started working with our Russian colleagues and Energia in particular a little over 2 years ago now, and that was in the early planning, just trying to understand their module and then the requirements that they were going to have once they arrived here. I came onto the mission in November of 2008, so not quite midway through, but not at the beginning. But we really, just shortly after that, about December 2008, is when we really started ramping up our planning to prepare for their arrival here at the center and get them ready for launch. And then one of the major milestones that we had was in 2009, in the summer of 2009, the cargo integration review. And that's out in Houston, and that's where we all gather together and review their engineering, review all of the requirements, and just make sure that their payload is going to be compatible with the shuttle, and make sure there's not going to be any issues when we go to integrate into the orbiter and get it ready for launch.
Well, let's go ahead and look at the video now, and Robbie, if you will walk us through us and tell us what we're seeing as we go along here.
Okay, sure. Okay, this is out at the shuttle landing facility. This is a Antonov 124 aircraft operated by Volga Dnepr, and they were contracted to bring the Russian-built MRM-1, or Mini Research Module Number 1, from Moscow here to the U.S. and to Florida. And now we're looking at actually the front end. The nose has been lifted up, and they're bringing the primary shipping container out that has the MRM-1 module itself, as well as the equipment airlock that is for one of the outfitting components for a later Russian module, the multipurpose laboratory module, launches later. So it's been transferred to a flatbed and then transported over off-center over to the port at the Astrotech facility. And now we're watching some of their technicians, the Energia technicians, or as they call them, specialists, loading cargo into the module. And that's some of the 1,400 kilograms, or just over 3,000 pounds of U.S. cargo that is being launched inside the MRM-1 module. Now the technicians are preparing to close the hatch. That'll be the final hatch closure, getting it ready for to bring it back to the center here and integrate it with the orbiter. So this is the actual hatch being closed. This is the it has a hatch on or a docking port on either end, but this is the one that will be used to dock to the station. And that docking mechanism that you saw and we're looking at here with the red protective covers over it, it's the same mechanism that's used on a Soyuz or a Progress vehicle. So we have a lot of experience with those. So the MRM-1 is now in its flight configuration. They finished all of their final assembly, integration, testing, checkout activities at the port, and it's getting ready to come over to the center and to our space station processing facility. That's the equipment airlock on the back of, or the top of, the MRM-1 module. And they're using air-bearing casters now to translate it over and get it ready to install in the shipping container for the short road trip from the port onto the center and to our space station processing building. And these are Astrotech technicians who are doing the hoisting. We'll install it. This is an Astrotech or vintage Space Hab transportation system, payload transportation system that we're looking at. It's the container there, and it's also a specially developed lowboy trailer that they use for transporting payloads. So it's going into the, well, it was in the shipping container. Now we're over in the space station processing facility, and we're preparing to put the module into our payload canister for the trip out to the launch pad. This is the other end of the docking mechanism, or the MRM-1 that we were looking at. That'll be the port where Progress and Soyuz vehicles will dock in the future. So that is one of the two grapple fixtures. That's the one that will take, the station arm will take the handoff from shuttle arm on orbit during the mating operations. This is a couple of days later, April 7th, the integrated cargo carrier in the space station building, and it's also being installed in the payload canister, getting ready to come out to the pad. We were looking at 6 batteries on the back side of it, and then prominently featured there on the front is the KU band antenna that'll be flying up. Now the canister is being rotated from horizontal. This is over in our canister rotation facility. So we take it from horizontal to vertical for the trip out to the pad. So we lift it up here and set it right back down on the same transporter, but just in the vertical. And they're bolting it down now and securing it for the trip to the pad. And this is April 15th in the evening of on the way out to the pad with the VAB and the Launch Control Center in the background. And now we're actually back here in the SSPF, I should say, downstairs in one of the offline laboratories. This is a week prior to launch, and we're looking at one of the research teams preparing their experiment to get it ready to be installed in the orbiter. This is some of the kind of the time-critical samples that get installed late in the flow, about 24 hours prior to the launch. Those are rice seeds we were looking at. That's one of the Japanese-sponsored experiments where they'll be looking at the effects of microgravity on rice, cellular wall development, and basically looking at the ways to counteract the microgravity environment for growing things on orbit. Now we're back in the at the pad in the payload changeout room. This is earlier this week on the 11th, the final door closure for launch. So the payload bay doors are being closed. The payloads have all been closed out. Final inspection, everything checked out very well. And the doors are going closed. And this is the moment in the flow where our team, the payload team, can kind of just let out a big exhale as the payload bay doors are closed, and just enjoy the rest of the week as leading up to launch.
Well, Robbie, what, from your perspective, you think have been some of the most interesting aspects of this mission?
Well, I mean, the main thing that stands out is the international aspect, and particularly working with our Russian colleagues on this mission. We have a history of working with our Russian partners, but this is the first Russian major element that is being launched on the shuttle to the space station. We, of course, have launched Russian element to the Mir, previously the docking module, but this is the first one that we've launched in the payload bay of the shuttle on the way to the station. So that's been very unique and interesting for our team. It's been a great learning experience for us, and one of the things that I hadn't prepared for when I came onto this mission, because up to that point I had not had any experience working with international partners, but when in working with the Russians, I guess I wasn't aware ahead of time that all of the conversations are carried on through translators. So that was a new aspect to this mission flow that I had not experienced before. All of our meetings were through translators, all of our teleconferences, again, through translators, and then any of our correspondence had to go through translation. So you just had to build in time to allow for that in our planning.
Well, Robbie, thank you very much, and we're looking forward to, of course, seeing on orbit what happens with the Russian module, and of course there's a whole array of some of these mid-deck experiments that we've touched on, and I think Atlantis is going to have a very exciting 12-day mission coming up here. Thank you for coming over and tell us something about it.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and yes, it is going to be an action-packed mission. We're looking forward to watching it as it unfolds.
And with about 40 minutes, 20 seconds remaining this planned built and hold, we're at T-minus 3 hours and holding. This is Shuttle Launch Control. We're entering the suit-up room now at the astronaut quarters in the Operation Checkout building. Here's our commander, Ken Ham, who has spent 13 days in space aboard Discovery on 124. Here's our pilot, Tony Antonelli. This is his second trip into space, having flown as a pilot on 119 aboard Discovery, which delivered a space station integrated truss segment and a pair of solar generating wings. Going over now to Garrett Reisman, MS-1 aboard Atlantis on STS-132. He'll be performing spacewalks 1 and 3. He holds a PhD in mechanical engineering and spent 3 months in space aboard the International Space Station. And here is Steve Bowen. He's the first ever submarine officer selected by NASA to be an astronaut. He's mission specialist number 3 and will be doing 2 spacewalks, EVAs 1 and 2. This is his second spaceflight, having flown previously on Endeavour. Piers Sellers. This is his third spaceflight, having flown on STS-112 on Atlantis and 121 aboard Discovery. He's logged 41 EVA hours and 6 spacewalks. And Michael Good, making his second trip into space, having served as mission specialist number 2 on this mission. He'll be doing spacewalks on EVAs 2 and 3. He was previously on Atlantis on STS-125, the most recent mission to do maintenance on the Hubble Space Telescope. And here comes our STS-132 Atlantis crew, leaving the suit-up room, headed now for the elevator. And much of the astronaut support personnel in the ONC giving them a goodbye as they leave. And here they come. Kennedy Spacer employees are always invited to wish the crew well as they leave for the launch pad. And they'll be escorted out to the pad by a NASA security van, as is customary, behind them. And there they go.
Atlantis is slated for its final journey before going into retirement. And we follow an astronaut mum as she spends time with her family before returning to space. Don't go anywhere. The iDesk will be back.
The astronaut now arriving at the pad and going up the incline, going up the ramp to the pad surface.
Set to launch in less than 4 hours, and right now the astronauts themselves are being ferried over to that launch pad there at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. This will be Atlantis' last journey to space. Atlantis will be taking supplies and a new research module to the International Space Station. John Zarella is keeping an eye on the shuttle preparations for us there at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Yeah, there we have the astronauts arriving there at the launch pad. John, give us a sense of the build-up to all of this.
You know, it is actually quite a build-up, Aisha, here with, as you mentioned, the last shuttle flight's coming. Only 2 left scheduled after this one. Talked to some folks at the Kennedy Space Center here today, and they have 9,000 guests just over at the Visitors Center who paid money and to come out here and watch the shuttle launch today, paid for tickets, and those tickets sold out in 30 minutes. That's the level of excitement. A lot of people want to come to see these final shuttle flights. Looks like it's going to go today, at least right now. Weather is absolutely ideal here for a launch. The 6-member crew on its way out to the launch pad have made it their way to the launch pad now, and they'll be getting on board Atlantis in just a little while now, and on their way to a 12-day mission, as you mentioned, to the International Space Station. So looks real good right now. They're not working any issues. Aisha?
Give me a sense, though, of how people there at NASA are dealing with the fact that the shuttle mission is coming to an end as they prepare for these final journeys.
You know, it's a difficult time here. You run into people at stores and they just kind of hope that maybe NASA will extend out the missions into next year, and there is a possibility that that might happen, perhaps adding a flight next time this year, probably around this time next year. That's still in the works. That might happen. There's that kind of hope, but a realization that certainly within the next year, thousands of people here are going to lose their jobs, and many of them going to take early retirement, others not knowing what they will do once that happens. So some very tenuous, difficult times that they're facing here.
Yeah, but meanwhile, you have been following Catherine Katie Coleman as she prepares for her journey to the International Space Station in November 2010. Tell us about that.
You know, and that's all part of this story, because when Katie goes, Shuttle will be, in a sense, retired from taking astronauts to the space station. They're not doing that any longer, so she's going to have to fly on a Russian Soyuz rocket next December when she goes. And last month, when Discovery lifted off, Katie was my guest astronaut, but she also had her family here with her, and she actually had an opportunity to be tourist with her family. Oh, well, there you are. For astronaut Katie Coleman, it's kind of appropriate when the stars line up just right. It's so great to have you live with us, Katie. A break in training came just at the right time. At the same time, the Shuttle Discovery was set to launch. Katie was our guest astronaut, but far more importantly, just off camera, stood husband Josh and 9-year-old son Jamie.
I mean, I did my 2 launches before he was born, and we talk about what it was like, but I think there's nothing like the enormity of a shuttle launch. I mean, in person.
Yep, that's about right, Amy. For Katie and family, with time together becoming more infrequent, they squeeze in and soak up as much as every precious second allows. After launch, the Saturn V Center to see an old moon rocket.
This is the final stage.
You know what? I think our Soyuz is smaller.
Jump a little. Okay, shout straight forward. Can you hear it coming back at you?
Then a trip over to Launch Complex 34. Most people don't get to see this place. It's not on the tourist tour. It probably should be.
They were breathing pure oxygen, and it was just a lot easier to have a fire.
Astronauts Grissom, White, and Chaffee died here. Apollo 1, 1967. There's a weathered wreath and a plaque. That's it.
They gave their lives in service to their country.
A flash fire in the command module during a test.
When you come out here to the Apollo 1 pad and you think of the comrades that we've lost and the lessons that we've learned, it puts it into perspective. There are risks attached that, I accept and my family accepts as well.
It's the kind of thing where you can wake up in the middle of the night and worry about it. Although if you go to that place, it's not a good place to be. It doesn't get you anywhere.
Of course, this old launch pad has some cool spots to explore.
I don't think anybody could be here during launch.
No.
And great climbing places for a kid. Astronaut moms think just like any mom.
I don't think we should go for the top.
That's pretty high, and it's pretty slippery.
A large part of the focus for Katie and Josh is keeping Jamie's life constant. Going to school, playing ball, doing chores.
He does the dishes and clears the table, and
it's about building a strong foundation so even when mom is flying, Jamie will stay well grounded. Now, Katie is actually in Russia right now, Aisha. 5 weeks of training. She'll make one more visit there before she actually flies next December. And I talked to her this morning. She was asking, is the story going to run today? And I said, yeah, we'll make sure your family knows so they can record it for you. Aisha?
Fantastic. Hopefully she's watching CNN where she is. Many thanks, John.
She can see it on CNN.
That's right. And just remind all our viewers watching us today that they will be able to see the launch of Atlantis, its final flight. We will be carrying the pictures live for you here on this network at 2:20 Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Eastern time. We'll carry it live, so be sure to tune in. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're headed back to the street. All right, stay with the iDesk. We're going to be back a short time from now. Don't
Here are the astronauts now getting off the elevator, ready to cross the orbiter access arm. And our commander, Ken Ham, being assisted with his launch and entry suit prior to boarding Atlantis to be our first crew member aboard today. And here we see our commander being seated in the cockpit. He'll be followed by Mission Specialist number 3, Steve Bowen, in just a moment. And Mission Specialist number 3, Steve Bowen, being assisted with his launch and entry suit. He will be doing 2 spacewalks on STS-132, EVAs 1 and 2. This is his second space flight, having flown previously aboard Endeavour on STS-126 in 2008, where he logged more than 19 hours of EVA time in 3 spacewalks. Joining us now here in firing room 4 is astronaut Ricky Arnold. He is going to be walking us through some of the activities to put the crew members on board. And I wonder, first of all, if you could give us a little bit of your impressions of what it was like to be in that white room and getting on board the shuttle right now. What are your your recollections?
Over a year ago, and good morning. It was just a little over a year ago, and it was a good afternoon. It was something that was very familiar. We actually come down here a month before we launched to kind of do a dress rehearsal of all the activities. So, you know, the people, the faces, and all the procedures are very familiar. The only difference today is it's going to be for real. Get a pretty good view looking down into the cockpit there. You can see all the switches, the overhead switches. Ken Ham is on the right. Tony Antonelli, you can see his American flag on his left shoulder. And Chris Cassidy, the top of his head, he's the astronaut support personnel. And getting in there's a little tricky. You'll notice when they were getting them in there early, you saw Chris being very careful with the guys' heads and helmets, because it'd be really easy to bump one of those switches right overhead.
But I gather if that happens, there's pretty easy to notice in the firing room or somewhere, isn't it?
Absolutely. Someone down here is playing close attention, and you can see Garrett Reisman getting strapped into that in the lower left-hand corner there. He's MS1 on this mission, and his job really is to keep an eye on Tony, back him up, help him out. We got one of the big milestones prior to launch is the APU pre-start. Garrett will be making sure Tony gets all that right, although Tony will get it all right. And the next last person is Mike Good. He's actually MS2. He'll be the last guy getting strapped in here.
Houston, MS4, contact.
Hey, good morning, Piers. We're just enjoying your accent down here. How do you have us?
Loud and clear, sir.
Right.
Hawk's trying to get a look at something. Got a couple mirrors going on, and yeah, it'd be nice to have a little bit of audio. Maybe it wouldn't right now.
I guess when you can't turn your head, can't move around, a mirror's not a bad thing to have.
Yeah, there's actually some panels Tony has to get a look at on his lower right-hand side. That there's some.
OTC, MS1, contact.
MS1, this is OTC. I have you loud and clear. Good morning, Big G.
Good morning, Mother. Good to hear you.
Glad to have you on board this morning.
Garrett Reisman getting a comm check. Yeah, so there's actually some talkbacks on some switches back behind, right over Tony's right shoulder that he can't really turn his head to see with the helmet on.
MS1, come check.
MS1, this is NTD. I've got you loud and clear. Good morning, Garrett.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good to hear you.
And they'll use these mirrors for taking a look at that.
Houston, MS1, come check.
Hey, good morning, Garrett. We got you loud and clear. How us?
Good morning, Coach. You're sounding especially handsome this morning.
You scared me, dude.
Thank you for using your sexy voice.
And Mike Good coming into view in the MS2 seat, and Chris Cassidy will start working on him here shortly.
So it's not always the same closeout crew members in the white room from flight to flight. It varies some if they're assigned to a mission.
Exactly. The guys who actually, the suit technicians, I guess is the word I'm looking for, which is part of the kind of the closeout crew. The suit technicians are basically assigned to the crew, and they'll be working more than one mission at a time. But they're the guys who are coming out to training events whenever we're suited, wearing these orange suits. They'll be there supporting, and they really know the equipment. They kind of know what's worked and what hasn't worked, and they do a really outstanding job getting us ready to fly and making sure we have all the proper equipment we need to get up there safely.
So it looks like they're all aboard now.
Yeah, it sure does. Getting Bueno strapped in, and they're getting some preparations made to the hatch, and looking like a good day.
Welcome back. You are looking at the launch pad at Kennedy's Space Center. The countdown clock is ticking, and we're just a few minutes away from Space Shuttle Atlantis' last trip into space. And there are just 2 shuttle missions left after Atlantis retires. John Zarella is live at Kennedy Space Center. And John, it looks like perfect conditions there for liftoff. Ready to go?
Yeah, Rosemary, absolutely. I hate to jinx it. The weather has been spectacular here at the Kennedy Space Center, and the vehicle is in perfect shape. They have had absolutely no issues during this countdown towards the launch of Atlantis. And, you know, as you mentioned, this is supposed to be, probably will be, the last flight of the shuttle Atlantis, the orbiter flying to the International Space Station on a 12-day mission. Rendezvous on Sunday with the space station. The 6-member crew, once up there, will perform 3 spacewalks. And as all of these final missions are, the whole idea is to stock up and to supply the space station with as much stuff as they possibly can, because once the shuttles stop flying, it'll be a lot more difficult to get big stuff up there because of the limited cargo capacity in some of the unmanned cargo vehicles that are going to fly and on the Russian rockets. So, you know, that also brings up the point that there is a possibility, Rosemary, that NASA might add a flight sometime next year. There's a lot of movement towards that. A lot of people want to see that happen. No guarantee it will. But as it stands right now, this will be the final flight of the Shuttle Atlantis. And then Discovery and Endeavour will take their turns on the launch pad before they are retired as well. But again, Rosemary, the astronauts are on board. Atlantis is fueled 500,000 gallons, liquid hydrogen and oxygen, and everything is counting down smoothly toward a launch here in about 35 minutes.
Yeah,
Rosemary?
Very exciting. John, you mentioned there that NASA may add another flight. You sort of feel, given what needs to be done, that they're going to have to do that in the end. But what are people saying about the shuttle mission coming to an end?
You know, if you talk to the folks certainly here at the Kennedy Space Center, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Several thousand people will lose their jobs. The future is still up in the air, still uncertain as to what direction NASA is going to go, how much involvement and impact the commercial space industry is going to have, how much of a chunk will they be able to take over. So there are a lot of people here who are very, very sad to see the shuttle go. You know, in fact, last week I had an opportunity to talk to John Young and Bob Crippen, who flew the very first shuttle flight back in 1981, interviewed them, and the two of them say, gosh, they should still keep flying these shuttles because they do a good job. Rosemary?
Oh, yeah. John Zarella there waiting for liftoff. Very exciting for all of us. I want to turn to Lola Martinez now with the launch forecast. And Lola, we're about 35 minutes away. Wow, it looks pretty good, though, that backdrop to John Zarella.
It does. It seems like he may even make it a little suntan there because conditions are almost perfect. He said, let's not jinx it because that can happen. You know, anything can happen. But if you really take a look at this, the clouds are to the west. So we're seeing really clear skies, mid-20s, all that sunshine. It was almost like a picture-perfect weather conditions. Winds are a little bit out of the east-southeast, 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, but really gorgeous weather. So we'll keep on waiting. 30 minutes, a little bit.
And attention on the net, this is the NTD performing the launch status checks. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC. OTC is go. TBC. TBC is go. PTC. PTC is go. LPS. LPS is go. Houston flight.
Houston flight is go.
Mila. Mila's go. STM. STM is go. Safety console. Safety console is go. SPE. SPE is go. LRD. LRD is go. SRO. SRO is go. You have range clear to launch. And CDR. Atlantis is go. I copy all. And Launch Director NTD. Launch Director. Yes, sir. At this time, the launch team is ready to proceed.
I copy that, Jeremy. Thank you. KC Chief Processing Engineer, verify no constraints to launch.
No constraints.
Thank you, Steve. Payload Launch Manager.
Mike, for our Russian partners and the rest of the ISS processing team, we'll go.
Copy that. Thanks, Bill. KC Safety and Mission Assurance.
KC Safety and Mission Assurance is go, Mike.
Thank you, Mark. Range Weather.
Weather has no constraints for launch, Mike.
Copy. Ops Manager.
Mike, the MMT's in good shape. Shuttle program is go to let you launch Atlantis.
Okay, copy that. Thank you. Atlantis Launch Director.
Go, sir.
Okay, Hawk, on behalf of all the manufacturing, processing, flight, and launch teams that have worked on Atlantis since March of 1980, I'd like to wish you all good luck, Godspeed, and have a little fun up there.
Thanks, Mike. Those are great words. And like you said, there's 1,000 of folks out there that have taken care of this bird for a long time. Right now, a special thanks to Orbiter for getting us off the pad today. And we're going to take her on our 30-second flight. And if you don't mind, we'll take her out of the barn and make a few more laps around the planet. Nove Ratiet, Prihodit, Nastanciu. Payekli.
Thanks, Hawk. I understood all that. And we'll try to get you out of here on time.
You're the man.
And NTD Launch Director, you are clear to launch Atlantis.
Copy that, Launch Director. And attention on the net, the countdown clock will resume from T-minus 9 minutes in 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
NTD ISL, recorder activation is complete.
Copy that, ISL.
Standing by now to pick up the count in 30 seconds. Picking up in 15. Picking up in 10.
The countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
CLS auto sequence has been initiated.
The ground launch sequencer, the primary computer here in the firing room, is now in control of the countdown. We'll be checking over 1,000 parameters in the launch sequence for Space Shuttle Atlantis in the next 9 minutes. Onboard flight data recorders have been activated.
TLT, OTC, connect essential buses to fuel cells per your checklist.
OTC, TLT, that's in work.
T-minus 8 minutes, transmitting the stored final program pre-launch commands.
OTC, TLT, essential buses connected to fuel cells.
Copy.
Beginning now to retract the crew orbiter access arm.
Let's go for orbiter access arm retract.
Atlantis crew, our team has worked hard, and it's with great pride that we send the last crew of Atlantis to the International Space Station with the mini research module to be installed.
Well put.
Teresa Annulus, our orbiter test conductor today from United Space Alliance. T-minus 7 minutes. Next, the pilot will perform the auxiliary power unit pre-start in about...
CRPS, OTC, start APU display recorders. CRPS, recorders are running. CLT, perform APU pre-start.
APU pre-start, inward.
Next major milestone will be at T-minus 5 minutes when the orbiter's auxiliary power units will be started.
OTC, PLT, APU pre-start complete.
Copy.
And at that time, the data recorders here in the firing room will be started. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
CLS is go for orbiter APU start.
CLT, perform APU start.
APU start, inward.
CDR, reconfigure heaters.
Heater reconfigure, work.
Solid rocket booster safe and armed devices now being armed.
OTC and PLT APU start and heater reconfig complete.
Copy.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting.
CLS is go for purge sequence 4.
Starting the orbiter aerosurface profile test. That will be followed by a steering check of Atlantis' 3 main engines. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. Verifying the main engines are in start position.
CLS is go for EP LO2 pressurization.
Preparing now to retract the gaseous oxygen vent arm, the GOX beanie cap, the vent hood.
CLT, OTC, clear caution warning memory, verify no unexpected errors.
That's inward.
Fuel cells going to internal reactants.
OTC, PLT, caution warning clear, no unexpected errors.
Copy. Atlantis, close and lock your visors and initiate O2.
OTC, that is in work.
T-minus 2 minutes and counting.
CLS is go for EP LH2 pressurization.
Activating the cameras on the solid rocket boosters.
One minute, 30 seconds.
Sound suppression water system is now armed.
One minute.
Ground launch sequencer will hand off to Atlantis' onboard flight computers at T-minus 31 seconds. About 15 seconds from now. Solid rocket booster flight data recorders are activated. T-minus 31 seconds. The handoff has occurred.
25.
Solid rocket booster nozzle gimbal check. Firing chain is armed. Sound suppression water system activated.
And now let's go now to the Kennedy Space Center and join the coverage in Florida from our sister networks, CNN Domestic, of course, in the United States. This is the Space Shuttle Atlantis about to blast off on its last flight.
Was able to build this space station. We are going to move on and develop new vehicles that will be in their place in their time.
Hey, John.
But right now, last couple of shuttle flights. Don?
Yeah, I want to jump in right now because, as I said, it's history in the making.
Yep.
Let's just listen into the last couple seconds and let our viewers hear the whole thing.
Solid rocket booster nozzle gimbal check. Firing chain is armed. Sound suppression water system activated. T-minus 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Go for main engine start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And 0 and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis, reaching the crest of its historic achievements in space.
Houston, Atlantis is in a roll.
Roger, roll. Houston is now controlling. The roll maneuver is complete. Atlantis is in a heads-down position on course for a 51.6 degree, 136 by 36 statute mile orbit. Main engines on Atlantis have now been throttled down to 72% of rated thrust as the orbiter prepares to pass through the area of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle in the lower atmosphere. The engine's now beginning to throttle back up.
Atlantis, you are go at throttle up.
Copy, go, throttle up.
All three engines looking really good, back at full throttle now at liftoff. The fully fueled shuttle, boosters, and external tank weighed 4.5 million pounds. It now has burned half of that liftoff weight in propellant. 1 minute, 30 seconds into the flight, all three auxiliary power units that provide hydraulic power to the orbiter's systems in good shape, as are the fuel cells providing electricity to all of the systems on board. Atlantis is already 19 miles in altitude, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 20 miles, traveling 2,500 miles per hour. Coming up on staging, the point at which the twin solid rocket boosters burn out and separate from the orbiter. Booster separation confirmed. The onboard guidance system has done its job of settling out any of the...
Okay, the 32nd and final flight of Atlantis. It first made its first voyage in 1985, taking off there from Cape Canaveral at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The Discovery and Endeavour shuttles will also fly later this year. And then, of course, the 30-year shuttle program comes to an end. We've heard the announcement from President Barack Obama with his future plans of what he wants to do with the space program, but will not include the space shuttle program after 30 years of flight and about $173 billion of investment. We're going to take a short break. Quest Means Business continues right after this.
104% of rated thrust.